Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is The Lollipop and today I'm going to do one last comparison between the 2021 Trek Marlin, Specialized Rockhopper, and Giant Talon bikes, this time covering the less expensive models in each range. Now I have already compared different bikes in all three of these lineups in the past, and I'll link both of those videos in the description of this video below, as well as right now on the top right of the screen if you are interested. But today I'll be comparing and contrasting the 2021 Giant Talon 4, Specialized Rockhopper, and Trek Marlin 5, covering everything from the tires to the drivetrains. I will also be completing this table at the end of the video and talking about my thoughts on which bike is the best hardtail for $600 or less at the end. And once again, since I do not want to repeat myself from those previous videos, I'm going to skip all of the background information on these lineups and the in-depth details about their frame geometry, but I will show you the main specifications right now. Basically, the Giant Talon frame has the most modern geometry currently that is closest to a trail bike, so it will be better at descending than the other bikes based on geometry alone. And the Trek Marlin has geometry numbers closest to a cross-country mountain bike, so it will be better for pedaling efficiency and speed. And one last point, like in my other videos for these lineups, I will only be covering the main differences among the bikes, which will not include all of the finishing components like the handlebars, the pedals, the seat, and so on, since those can be swapped out more easily and they're not even that different regardless. So with that stuff out of the way, I'm going to start off the comparison by discussing the prices. The Giant Talon 4 is the least expensive bike at $520 or 450 pounds, while the Trek Marlin 5 and Specialized Rockhopper bikes are both priced at $600, but in pounds the Rockhopper costs 450 pounds while the Marlin 5 is priced a little bit more at 495 pounds. Now the prices of all of these bike lineups have recently increased, so this table shows all of the current prices. Most of these have increased by $100 from the prices we saw when these bikes were first released last year, but I'll continue to update these in the comments section below if they do change anymore. But now onto the suspension fork. This is going to be pretty quick because all the bikes basically use the same fork, which is the SR Suntour XCE 29 or 28. This is a coil spring fork with 28mm wide diameter stanchions and a quick release axle so you can easily take off the wheel of the bike. They all have 100mm of travel in most sizes, although for the smaller frames the travel amounts differ a bit among the bikes. Overall, these forks are very entry-level and are thus more oriented towards lighter trails or commuting purposes. Next, we have the tires. All the bikes come with wire bead tires that are not tubeless ready, and most of them come with 29-inch diameter wheels, except for the extra small frame sizes which come with 27.5-inch diameter wheels. The 29-inch wheels will be faster and roll over terrain better, while the 27.5 wheels will be a bit more nimble and comfortable for shorter riders. So the Giant Talon uses Maxxis Icon 2.2-inch wide tires, the Rockhopper uses Ground Control Sport 2.3-inch wide tires, and the Marlin 5 uses Bontrager XR2 Comp 2.2-inch wide tires. All of these are very cross-country oriented tires, but Maxxis is a very popular brand known for making good tires, so those are likely going to be the best overall for traction, although the wider ground control sport tires from the Specialized should provide some added grip for the Rockhopper. For the brakes, all the bikes use 160mm diameter wide brake rotors in the front and the rear, which is typical for most bikes, but larger rotors than these are preferred for mountain biking because they increase stopping power. The Giant Talon 4 uses Tektro TKD 172 mechanical disc brakes, while the Specialized Rockhopper uses Radius CX7 mechanical disc brakes, and the Trek Marlin 5 uses Tektro M275 hydraulic disc brakes. The hydraulic disc brakes will perform much better than the mechanical disc brakes in terms of stopping power, and they will require less maintenance overall. The brakes on the Talon and Rockhopper should be pretty similar, though the Tektro brakes have some better construction and slightly better stopping power. And of course, the main difference among these bikes is the drivetrain, which I will go over now. The Talon uses a mainly Shimano Tourney 2x7 drivetrain with 14 total speeds, while the Rockhopper uses a mixed 2x8 drivetrain with 16 speeds. And lastly, the Marlin uses a 3x7 mainly Shimano Tourney drivetrain with 21 different speeds. These numbers just mean that there are either 2 or 3 gears in the front of the bike and 7 or 8 gears in the back, which changes the amount of speeds and gear ranges each bike has. For mountain biking specifically, less gears are preferred since there are going to be less moving parts and you don't need all of those speeds on the trail. For commuting purposes, having more gears is nicer since you have more speeds to choose from if you want to go a little bit faster or slower. But for the specific components in these drivetrains, the Talon 4 uses a Pro Wheel 22 to 36 tooth crankset, meaning there are 22 teeth on the smaller gear in the front and 36 teeth on the larger gear. The Specialized bike also uses a 22 to 36 tooth crankset, but this one is Stout branded, which is an in-house brand for Specialized. Then the Trek Marlin 5 uses a 3 chainring crankset with 24 teeth on the smallest gear, 34 in the middle, and 43 on the largest. For the rear cassettes, the Talon 4 actually uses a freewheel with 14 teeth on the smallest cog and 28 teeth on the largest cog. Freewheels are cheaper than cassettes and have narrower gear ranges. The Rockhopper instead uses an 11 to 34 tooth Sunrace brand cassette, which has less teeth on the smaller cog and more teeth on the larger cog for a wider gear range that allows for easier uphill pedaling and a harder speed for going faster. Then the Marlin 5 has a Shimano 12 to 32 tooth cassette, which is a narrower range than the Rockhopper, but a wider one than on the Talon 4. And lastly, we'll discuss the derailleurs. All of these bikes use both front and rear derailleurs for moving the chain to different gears, and all of them actually use the same Shimano Tourney rear derailleur, but the Trek Marlin uses a Shimano Tourney front derailleur as well, while the other two bikes upgrade to the Shimano Altus front derailleur. The Tourney line from Shimano is their most entry-level group set, so shifting speed and quality will not be the best, and it's worth mentioning that the Shimano Altus front derailleur is noticeably smoother than the Tourney. And before I talk about my final thoughts, I'm going to discuss the weight of each bike. Trek is the only brand out of these three that gives the official weights of their bikes, and they have the Marlin 5 weighing in at 31.84 pounds or 14.44 kilograms. I don't have the official weights of the other two bikes, but they should weigh a bit less considering their simpler drivetrains, so they're probably around 30 to 31 pounds or around 13.5 to 14 kilograms. Okay, so now that you know all the main components on these bikes and their prices, I'm going to explain which bike I think is the best for a specific purpose. All of these bikes are honestly very similar, and they have basically the same suspension fork and pretty similar tires, although the Maxxis brand tires on the Giant Talon are A+, since they're known to be very good. For the brakes, the Trek Marlin definitely wins since hydraulic brakes are way better at stopping the bike than mechanical ones, and mechanical brakes have to be adjusted more often. The main differences between the bikes definitely lie in the drivetrains and in the frames. Although the Marlin stays consistent with its drivetrain and uses the same Shimano Tourney group set for all of the parts, the Tourney system is the most entry-level group set available. I personally own a Marlin 5 and the drivetrain isn't bad, but for trail riding purposes it does skip gears, the chain does fall off the bike more often, and it does also get stuck between gears on gnarlier terrain. The 2x drivetrains on the other bikes will give you a better trail riding experience, but I'd say overall the best drivetrain is the one on the Rockhopper, since it has the widest range rear cassette and has a good amount of speeds. Ultimately, you can't really go wrong with any of these bikes if you're choosing between the three, but in my opinion, you should get the Giant Talon if you want a great bike at a lower price that still easily keeps up with the other two, and then get the Rockhopper if you want a slightly better drivetrain, and then get the Marlin if you want those hydraulic disc brakes. I think any of these would be fine as a commuter or as a light trail riding bike, but in my opinion, it would be easier to just upgrade the brakes on the Rockhopper to hydraulic brakes than to upgrade the entire drivetrain or some parts of the drivetrain on the Marlin, so that is why the Rockhopper beats it out. I want to hear what other people think in the comments below, so feel free to say what your opinions are, but besides that, thank you all so much for watching.